Neste innleder ut er journalist, forfatter og energipolitisk rådgiver for regjeringspartiet i India, BJP. Ta godt imot Narendra Taneja.
Well, friends, greetings from India, first of all. I'm actually delighted here to come to this conference for two reasons. First of all, great admiration I have for your country. And secondly, and that's again is a very important reason, is that the conference is called Zero. Those who are familiar with the history of mathematics would know that zero was actually invented in India 3 or 4, 5,000 years ago. It traveled from India to Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, from there to Italy, and the rest is history. Well, I've traveled all the way from India, so I have little right to brag a little bit about this. Now look at this slide. We are a country bigger than the continent called Africa. Per capita consumption of energy, as you can see, and we have 300 million people without electricity. Some people even say that 400 million. And we have about 750 million people without access to natural gas. I mean, the people have never, ever experienced natural gas. So they are actually living below energy poverty line, millions and millions of them. And at the same time, when you look at the overall growth, the GDP growth and the growth overall, I think India is doing fantastically well. And as an Indian, I feel very proud of what we have been able to achieve on different parameters, including social. Now, this is the situation. Since my party, we formed the government last year, not even full 18 months yet, and we realized that we got to focus on renewables. Before we moved into power, the country didn't have even a renewable energy policy. And in terms of solar, we were producing just 3,000 megawatt. And it was not correct, it was not considered politically correct to talk too much about solar or wind or renewables as a whole. And look, in such a short period of just 18 months, what we have been able to achieve, and also the agenda that we have set overall for the people and for the country. And I can tell you one thing, in a very short period, if you ask me, what is our biggest achievement so far, of course, along with these figures, is that we have put renewables right on the very top of national imagination. You go today anywhere in the country, talk to any section of the society, even people living in remote villages, they now know what is renewable energy or what the government is trying to do. And we personally consider that this has been one of the major achievements of, as far as we are concerned. And we have, in cities and urban areas, we have now converted our renewable agenda into a kind of movement. Media is talking about it, schools are talking about it, businesses are talking about it, political parties are talking about it. The same political parties who were in power and neglected renewable, even they have been forced now to talk about renewable. So this is what we have been able to achieve in a country which is home to 1.26 billion people. Not a small achievement. And with this kind of backing, with this kind of clear vision, and this kind of agenda that we have got, we are transforming. We are transforming. In India, as a politician, I've realized one thing. Be careful about choosing your words. Never say change. Say transforming. People accept it. You may do the same thing, but just say transforming. And you are the biggest stakeholder. And look at the smile on their face. Because in transformation, they feel, I'm also part of it. And this is precisely what we're trying to do. We say, look, here is a large economy, here is what we have, and we are transforming. It's a big train journey, be a part of it, and people are happily joining and smiling. Now look at, we need 250 billion to meet our renewable targets, as you can see, but there are many challenges. I've just put out some. At the same time, if you look at the last one, I'm talking about Africa. In my view, China as an economy will peak by 2040. India as an economy will peak by 2050. And we will still have 50 years to go as far as this century is concerned. In my view, this is not Asian century as a lot of people keep talking about. This is Africa's century. This is Africa's century. And countries like Norway and like India, we've got to join our forces together and use renewable as one of the things in order to create a new future, new role models, new future cities, all that in Africa. And we have to come out with a common agenda as far as Africa is concerned, especially when it comes to come to countries like India. India has a great tradition of relationship with Africa. You have a great tradition. So there are lots of areas where, for instance, we can make sure that countries in Africa do not commit the same mistakes that people in Europe committed or the countries in Europe committed, or for that matter, we have committed in countries like India. Now, just look at this picture. When you look at this picture, this is a picture of Bombay. Lots of energy, absolutely no issue. And see another one. This is again Bombay, picture taken from the sea. We understand the problems all this is causing because this is all coal. 67% of energy that we produce in the country is actually produced using coal. We are using natural gas. We also use hydro, of course, but coal is a big boy. We also call king coal. And who can challenge king? If you challenge king and you are tiny renewable, you are in trouble. But we are in power, and we have the backing of the people. We also know how to communicate. We also know how to use the right words. Transformation, not change. So the result is that we are getting traction. And with the traction, we are actually making commitments. We are making commitments not only to our people, not only to our neighbors, but to the international community that what we plan to do. So we have pledged, for instance, to cut greenhouse emissions by 35% from the 2005 to 35%. That's a very, very ambitious target to set for a country like India. At the same time, when you look at our INDC, our INDC, we have announced to achieve 40% of power generation, 40% total power generation in India, using non-fossil fuels as soon as 2030. As soon as 2030. And today, 91% of our electricity or power generated in India is actually generated using fossil fuels. Not a small achievement. At the same time, let me talk about a bit of challenges. At the same time, mitigation activities for moderate low carbon development would cost us around 834 billion by 2030. 834 billion. We're a $2 trillion economy. So you can imagine, and we have lots of poor people. So you can imagine the kind of challenge that we have actually taken upon ourselves. Because we realize that, look, tomorrow cannot wait for us. We have to start working now. We have to act now. Challenges, we are developing society, we have widespread illiteracy, we have widespread poverty, but at the same time, precisely for these reasons, we have taken these challenges upon ourselves, and we have accordingly communicated to the international community. And at the same time, when you look at, for instance, there are other challenges. With the kind of challenges and the goals that we have, a goal we have set for ourselves, still, as a result of INDC, India will have a per capita emission of 3.5 tons by 2030, while USA and China will both have per capita emissions of 12 tons by the same period. The point I'm trying to drive home is huge challenges. It's not about USA, China, India, or this or that. It's more about is that how can we all join forces in such a way that we can create a beautiful world, a safer world for ourselves and of our children and our grandchildren. That's the approach that we are following in our party, and we know that, when I say that, we mean it because we have internal communication on the issues within the party, within the government, and at the same time, since we have that kind of consensus within our political party, we also have strength to communicate to our own people and of course beyond. Now, I talked about all those nice pictures of Bombay. Bombay is one of my favorite cities. But let me show you another picture, again of India. Now, look at this picture. You know what these people are doing? They are collecting fuel because they don't have access to electricity. The moment sun goes down, they are back to the 15th century. They're back to completely different civilization. And we have millions and millions of people in my country. We have millions in Pakistan. We have millions in Bangladesh. I'm sure there are millions in China too, but we don't know much about that. But definitely in Africa. Now, look at, for instance, when you look at, for instance, the poor of the world, their share in terms of global emissions, including the poor who live in India, is less than 3%. Less than 3%. Africa's role is less than 3%. And the poor, there are many Africans, there are many poor people in many countries, Latin America, Africa, Asia, less than 3%. Look at another picture. You know what this woman is doing? This is cow dung. Millions use that as fuel from Iran to Indonesia. And these people, they're also part of the world. They are also proud citizens. This woman is a proud citizen of India. Sometimes I ask this question, does she really understand what is climate change? Does she really care? Because the village where she lives, air is not polluted. Because they've never been part of the modern economy. They've never been part of the industrial economy. And there are millions and millions like that in my country, millions and millions across the developing world. And they are not polluting, and they are not living in a polluted environment. I've been to many such villages myself. When you go there, you're back to the 16th century in terms of civilization, in terms of innocence, in terms of smile, and also, of course, in terms of the overall life. The question is that when we set goals for ourselves, are we looking at holistically? When we meet in Paris, which according to me is already a success, already. Whatever happens there, but already is a success. Look at the kind of commitments made by different countries, including India. So in a way, it is already a success. But my worry is that we don't move so fast that we have not taken the concerns of 2.4 billion people who live below energy poverty line. I think it's very important that we have taken their concerns also on board and we introduce a new world to them. This is precisely what we are trying to do in India. My party, what we are trying to do is people who are kind of the moment sun goes down, they're back to the 15th century. Now we want to take them through the next century so that actually they jump over all these centuries, introduce them to solar. Wherever, for instance, people are using fuels like dung fuels or using even kerosene, we are trying to introduce now solar lamps and solar energy. It's all distributed energy, means no connection with the grid. We are creating these small, thousands of kind of, mini islands of solar. Sometimes we call them solar republics because they are completely independent. Because that's seems to be the faster way. Let me also serve you another interesting fact. Now look at this picture. Look at this picture. Here in India, we produce and consume 50% of energy that we produce and consume in India is actually produced by humans. It's zero emission. Absolutely no pollution. 50% of total energy we consume and produce in India is produced by humans. Absolutely zero emissions. Some people can say it's debatable. Yes, it's debatable. Now, so there are many things. But as I said, our commitment is basically modern. Our commitment at the same time is to carry everybody along, to be part of the global debate on the climate change, to be a part of the concerned global debate on, on the issue, but at the same time, make sure the poor, they don't suffer. This is the biggest nuclear reactor in the world called Sun. Sun is a nuclear reactor. And this is another thing we are looking at. Is that the way forward? 2070 and beyond? Is all energy going to come from nuclear? We don't know. We are struggling to find answers to all these questions. But at the same time, we have decided to be part of the international debate, to be part of the concerned international community. But let me finish by saying a few lines. The rich polluted the most, and they got richer. The poor polluted the least, and they got poorer. There was no climate justice then, and there is no climate justice now. I personally feel the time has come for us to achieve what we all want to achieve, but at the same time, we do it in such a way that those who are not qualified, are not equipped, don't have expertise, don't have talent, or just don't have the sophistication to be part of big conferences, to be part of big international negotiations, that their interest and their future is taken care of. After all, let's not forget one thing. As we go to Paris, or as we come to this conference, as we go to other conferences, we have close to 2.4 billion people. And their future literally is in our hands because they're too poor, they're too fragile, and they're not connected. So if we do something wrong in their name, future will not really spare us. So therefore, I conclude by saying that in terms of my party and India, we are fully committed, but we hope and expect that developed countries, the rich countries, keep in mind that they alone cannot set the agenda for everything in life. We have to do it together. Only then the agenda and the climate change debate, the climate change journey will be a success. Thank you.